Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Tekkast, episode 2, the podcast where we count frames, key charge at the start of rounds, and do not rematch waifu players. I am joined by Temp. Temp, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, what's going on, dude?
And I am Savitar. So today we are going to talk about kind of the state of the game as it is, because I think it'd be fair to say it has not been the best 6 to 8 weeks for Tekken 8. We're going to talk about Eddie and the 3D that doesn't work in the verbal format, but 3DDY it works in the written format. Maybe some of the monetization bullshit, Evo Japan and the shaping meta, or those the evolving meta, um, the nerfs and buffs, and maybe get onto to Lydia. I have very few thoughts on Lydia because I didn't play her in Tekken 7. So we'll start off then talking about Eddie. Temp, you had the pleasure of playing my incredibly scrub ass Eddie. What were your impressions?
Surprisingly positive. My worry with Eddie was that he was going to be very low tier or overpowered. Um, and he's neither. He's actually kind of nicely in the middle. He's cheap. He's ridiculous to fight against, but he doesn't seem to be competitively a problem, which is kind of the best place he can possibly land. I mean, now that may change. Like no one was really complaining about Lily that much back in January. There wasn't a whole lot of Lily noise going on, and now I think everyone kind of recognizes that Lily's sort of a problem. Um, so Eddie may go down that road, but right now I think he's okay. He's in a nice spot right now, and he looks good. I think as far as like design, yeah, he's Eddie. They did a good job.
I'm not a big fan design wise. I'm not a big fan of the is it called the is it the berimbolo, the instrument. Um, I'm not sure. No, that's a jiu-jitsu guard. Sorry. That's incredibly racist of me to just know a jiu-jitsu thing and apply that to a Brazilian man. The instrument he uses, the string instrument. I'm not a huge fan of that because it just looks so awkward, either strapped to his back or appearing out of nowhere. I do like his design. I'm a big fan of the leopard print jacket. I think that's his best look. Uh, Design wise, he actually kind of reminds me of Hwarang. I say that as a Hwarang main in that if you don't know the matchup or you are maybe a low to mid low level player, he can seem absolutely overwhelming. He's a legitimate scrub killer. He reminds me of Ermac in MK9, where he wasn't that good a character, but he was a legitimate scrub killer. And I think to be fair, he's a bit better than that. I mean, Tekken Master did great stuff with him at Evo Japan, which is ironically like the first time I've seen Tekken Master actually play Tekken. Um, Maybe I've missed that, but I've never seen the NRS Tekken Master make much noise in Tekken. But I think a lot of the um kind of salt around Eddie, it's I mean the fact that you can do like in our set, I basically just pressed three, like that was 85% of it. It's pressing three and his two power crushes. But outside of that, he doesn't really have much. His lows, he's got very few lows. A lot his frames aren't good. He does not have many plus frames. Now he does have good lows with his install. His install gives him a really two really really good lows. One from Negativa and I think the other one's from Handstand. But yeah, I don't particularly mind Eddie. I don't like playing him. He's insufferable to play against online. But I will say the majority of Eddies you play against online are just kind of abusing the power crushes. And I will say his power crushes are wildly overtuned. Um, Like I think that's something you mentioned after our set. I think it's the back 3-4 is the high kick one, and the 4-3-4 is like the handspring one, and the back 3-4 is a very annoying move, particularly from like round opening. That's one of the best opening moves in the game.
Yeah, it's incredibly stupid. I hate it. But I don't hold it against Eddie because that's really a Tekken 8 problem more than anything. I just think turns in general are too ambiguous in this game, and it's really hard to know when to take advantage of a situation. So I don't really hold that against Eddie. That's a game problem more than anything. But yeah, it's so dumb. I hate it. It makes me hate fighting the character.
Yeah, I do agree that's a game problem, and I think something I've said to you is that I feel like this is an armor based game. It's a power crush game. Um, And it's strange because they have buffed sidestep, but while also buffing sidestep, they've buffed tracking to a huge extent, and they've buffed running moves to a huge extent. So, like I've, and this is god awful Tekken, but I've started when someone is running at me, instead of trying to sidestep and counter, I'll just power crush through it, which like is awful in terms of what we traditionally think of as Tekken is horrific Tekken, but it's genuinely I'm genuinely having more success with that than sidestepping. And again, I play Huarang. I have B3. Like his back three is one of the best whiff punishers in the game. A sidestep with Huarang should be lethal, but genuinely just power crush through things, it has been more effective. So I do think that's a game problem, and I do think like you said, the ambiguity of taking your turn is a very very real problem. Now again, as Huarang, that kind of benefits me, but like it's almost like the meta in this game, and maybe we could transition to the meta on that. The meta in this game is to never let the other guy take a turn, to continually like either pepper him with plus frames, and as soon as you're out of plus frames, go into armor. And it seems like to me that's what I'm seeing as the meta online. And to be fair, that's not how the game is being played at the highest level. But I do wonder if the high level Tekken that we're seeing right now uh, is people trying to play Tekken 7, or they're using kind of legacy muscle memory to play a different game. And I think for me, what made that stand out was Knee. The way Knee, now I think Knee played really well. I think he was very unlucky that Evo Japan turned out the way it did. Um, I remember his last set. I think it was against Chikaran in losers final. No, in winners finals. Um, he he could have won every round, but he lost every round. It's just one of those ones. But there was a hesitancy in the way he was playing, and that could be because Knee traditionally is quite a defensive player, and Tekken 8 is a like an offensive casino. But I do think as the game evolves, there will be more and more usage of power crush and armor to bludgeon the other guy out of taking a turn.
which is strange. I don't. I mean, I know an easy solution to that. I don't. I know a solution that will make me happy. Just make armor moves -16, and we're back to old Tekken again. It's like, yeah, yes, please do the armor move. Because I think the issue I have is I will often do some moves just for advantage. I don't care about the damage. Like I'll do 1-2 with a character. I'll do 1-1 with a character. And I really don't care about the damage. I just want to create a turn situation. And even when I've done that, I still have to worry about armor. So I would kind of make it like a drive impact. Gosh, I can't believe I'm saying that out loud. I would make it like drive impact. Have it be hard counterable, and you're good. I'll do 1-1 with Elisa, then I'll wait for the armor, block it, and I'll do up forward 4, and life is good.
Well, I
So,
will
well,
say
actually, I don't. Yeah, it's 16, I think. Yeah.
you can counter armor with armor. So in terms of like a drive impact comparison, like the way you kind of call someone out on doing a drive impact by doing your own drive impact later for massive counter damage, you can and this is where you can kind of counter a power crush with a power crush, and this I think is where something I think if we're talking about kind of meta, and maybe we can get into a tier list discussion, like I'm firmly of the opinion that Hwarang is definitively mid tier. I don't think that's a hot take, but I think he trends more towards the lower end of mid tier. That might be a hot take, but his power crush. Now he only has one real power crush. I think he has like four armored moves, but only one out of his opening stance is down 4-3-4, the double claymore. Because that has two hits, that's an incredibly effective power crush moves because it can absorb. And I was playing a set. I feel like I played 10 sets against Law last night. Um, it absorbs one hit of somebody else's armor move, and its armor is still active. So that's a really really good tool for if you're playing Warang, or you play a character that has a power crush that hits twice. It essentially gives you that longer power crush, and it's very very generous in terms of timing. You do have to call out the other guy's armor, but to be honest with you, that's not entirely difficult playing Tekken 8 online.
Is it sustainable though? Because I think that's the problem I have. Is like I can bait it once or twice, but I don't know if I can make a long term strategy around baiting out armor. At least I guess even if I could, I wouldn't do that. I just wouldn't play the game. That's Tekken 8. I don't want to play anymore. Because especially with some of the characters I play, bank on that panic launcher. Like Asuka is very much all about the panic launcher to pester you until you do something stupid. Then it's down 3+4. And if I'm constantly trying to bait the armor, yes, if I call it out, I can do my own armor move. But the reward doesn't lead to a long-term strategy, at least not for my characters. Now, more defensive characters that may change, but
Yeah, I mean, I am aware.
I
It's
just
no, go
yep.
ahead.
Oh no,
I
I'm
was
posting a very important video of John Ding deep throwing a Red Bull can. I'm sorry, go on.
apologies to the chat to our listeners if this plays. I do have to see this.
Yeah, there's no volume. It's just GIFs, so you
That
should be
is
good.
one of the. I believe the kids call that sus. Um, I mean,
Watching the
I'm
live video of this, I heard what the commentators had to say about that, and I think Ricksta in this video is literally screaming, "Why would he do that?" And it's great. I'll
yeah,
link it to you after the show. It's very funny.
yeah. I mean, like I'm 30 in 6 weeks. I'll probably kill myself before then, but I am 30 in 6 weeks. But I believe my the fact that I'm in my Leo era and I'm dating a girl 8 years younger than me allows me to call that like sussy. That is very dodgy.
Makes a
Anyway,
very secure man.
yeah, it's a man who, and I look to give some more insight into my personal life. I'm a huge Bears fan, so you know my quarterback currently paints his nails, but that's fine. That's a man who's secure in his masculinity. That's cool. But I think there's being secure in your masculinity, and there's getting a Red Bull can a solid 4 inches into your throat. I mean that is the dick size of most Lars players, and he's got that deep in his throat. Yeah, that's certainly interesting. Anyway, what I was going to say was I am very much aware and I acknowledge that the idea of kind of baiting out armor is antithetical to how you want to play fighting games, and particularly the usage of armor and power crush in Tekken 8. Knowing how you play fighting games and knowing how you want to play fighting games, you're you love your staggers. You're always into the staggers, um, and pressuring people with staggers and pokes until they do something stupid. It's the style I associate with you. It's how you played. Your best character is a Street Fighter. Still have nightmares of your Lao in MK11, and that kind of style does not really gel with the meta of Tekken 8 in terms of armor and power crushes. And I think a lot of the times in our sets, even kind of mid round, there's almost a momentum swing when you try the traditional temp strategy of that kind of staggering and peppering, and I can just bust out a power crush and absorb it and knock you down for 30, and then once you're knocked down, I have the advantage. So I do think, in your defense, in terms of kind of recommending that as a strategy, it's not how you want to play fighting games.
We're getting there. We're getting close, though. I think very little things could switch this around. One solution, I like let's say -18, just to play it really safe. Make armored attacks -18. And now at least there's an incentive to play traditional Tekken. Another option is just to make them all highs, get rid of all the the mid armored attacks. I know they're power crystals. They're just my brain treats them as armored attacks. And if they're all highs, I can duck, bait, launch. Life is good. So, but do something though. Don't leave it as. Here's the thing. Does anyone like it? Is my question. Does anyone look at the armor meta and be like, yeah, this is my jam. I love this. I hope this doesn't change, like ever.
I think
I have not heard that sentiment yet.
law players
Well,
definitely
I
like
mean,
the armor meta.
I would delete law from the game, like if it were up to me. So
Yeah, I mean,
their opinion doesn't.
it puts me in an interesting position. We had intended to finish out the roster eval, but we're kind of stuck on time this morning, so we thought we'd save that for another time. I love Law, just so people are aware. Law has traditionally been my favorite Tekken character. I'm a huge Bruce Lee guy. Law has always been my favorite Tekken character. Ironically, this being the first Tekken game I've ever taken seriously. No, I mean, I'm not going to goddamn Evo, but that I'm playing online. I'm learning how to play the game properly. I'm not just playing against the computer. I can't stand him in this fucking game. um, I hate his design. I hate his nunchucks. I hate his stupid face. I hate his voice. I think of all like there's been this trend in the last like 3 games. Like it's like the Tekken developers discovered TRT and some cocktail of anabolic steroids in their day to day life because every fighter in Tekken is on Wisterol, he's on Trenbolone, he's on Clen, he's on Anavar. Like I mean, Kazi is 60 and he's built, but Law looks disgusting. And like that intro when he bunches all his muscles looks so fucking vile. Anyway, his I think it's 443. His like step kick armor is one of the best moves in the game. It's insane. It's a mid hitting armored heat engager which is safe with incredible range. Like that shit, that is bullshit of the highest order. And yeah, sorry, I just want to get that off my chest. Like I said, I played like 10 sets with Law, 10 sets against 10 sets against Law last night, and I'm feeling that. I'm really feeling some
Well, he
leftover
was
sauce
another
there.
one. People weren't really sure on Law at first. There wasn't a lot of like noise around Law, and then like around March, people were like, "Okay, we're kind of done with this character. Let's fix this. Let's
It's
get rid of this
ironic.
shit."
It's ironic you said that there was no noise because Law never shuts the fuck up.
Yeah.
And again, I love Bruce Lee movies. I'm a huge Bruce Lee fan, but like a good whapa once around, that's fine. Not every fucking move. Like him and Steve and fucking Victor. Well, Victor could just be because I hate the French. But no offense to any French people. I'm Irish. I'm allowed to
I
hate
mean,
people.
you don't need to hate the French to hate Victor.
No,
Like,
but I'm
there's
Irish.
good reasons to hate Victor.
The French people know why I hate them. I'm Irish. They know what
It's
I'm
a
getting at.
bonus.
Yeah. Yeah, Victor's just incredibly annoying. But yeah, I think Law players would firmly object to that armor being changed. I don't necessarily disagree with the idea of making them all highs or making them more punishable. I think Hwarang's is -12, so to go from -12 to -16, like they're both punishable by kind of. I mean, I suppose a good few characters do have like a 15 frame launcher, but like they have a 15 frame launcher. It's part of their tool set. I would just be concerned about making systemic changes where certain characters I don't want to say need it, but need it more. Um, so for instance, to take Hwarang, and there will probably be several comments about me downplaying Hwarang. I'm not downplaying Hwarang. I hate playing against Hwarang. He is so fucking annoying. Down 3-4 might be the greatest string in all of Tekken. But the reality is, in this game, he's just it. I'm sorry he kicks your ass in fucking red ranks, but he's not that strong. Like his down 3-4, he needs that to a certain amount to stay competitive in the kind of neutral mid range, which he kind of struggles at, which is ironic considering his frames and his range. But when I compare that to something like, is it Victor's 442? I think um, Law's 443, Eddie's forward 3-4. Asuka has one. I think you might know which one I'm talking about. I think she has her shoulder. Now her shoulder has limited range, but it's so quick, heat engager, and it's safe. When I look at those moves, like there is a gap. Or Lily's, I think it's her 3-4, her pirouette. Like those moves are on another level in my view. So I might push back on systemic changes and maybe hope for more kind of character focused changes, if that makes sense.
I would need to see the character. It really depends. But whatever character they choose, though, that is now the armor character. Their whole game plan needs to be built around that armor.
I don't disagree with that.
But
I
yeah,
disagree with that.
I think like it's going to benefit some characters more than others. Like I don't think E1 thinks June. Well, actually, that's a bad example because I have no idea where June stands now. I don't think E1 wants like Xiao Yu to have more armor. That does not. You don't want Xiao Yu to be the armored character. That sounds
Well,
like a nightmare.
the character that stands out to me, I suppose, that is the obvious one is King. I feel like King is armored on half of his moves. And he's got I think it's a back three, which it's the back kick which armors and if it connects autos into the leg drop. So that's like a safe armored like long range move that I think hits mid and hits for like 45 on damage. Like it's ludicrous. That is an absolute that should not have armor. I've no problem with the move, but the move should not have armor.
Yeah, King already is the armored character. You beat me to it. I would say if you want a character like that, make it like sort of a partial install, like Asuka's key charges. You know, Asuka
Yeah.
has enhancements in certain moves. when she does, when she meets certain conditions. So if, maybe King gets an armored property after doing a successful, I don't know, let's say up forward four, just because fuck it. But at least then I can make predictions about what to do and what not to do against King. Otherwise, right now, yeah, he is like the premier armored character right now, in my opinion.
And so, in terms of if we're moving then in towards the overall meta from that discussion of armor, what do we think? I suppose of the meta, we've kind of talked around it, I guess, a little bit. Um, but how do we feel about the meta in terms of the aggression? I think Arslan called it a casino. Um, so what's your take on that? I suppose.
I think like back in January, I thought the game was almost perfect. I couldn't really see the problem with armor, and to this day, it's not obvious to me why armor is so prevalent in this game, while not being as prevalent in Tekken 7. Because it was there too, just no one really used it that much. But it's all over the place in this game. I'm not super sure why, but it's really just the armor. I think the rest of the game is perfect. I don't really have a problem with heat smash or heat engagers. If a character has a heat engager, maybe don't make that move safe or make. I think -13's fine, but really, I'm mostly the game is so close to perfect, which is really what makes the armor so frustrating. And I'm willing to forgive a lot with this game anyway, because graphically it looks so good, and the netcode is more than functional, even if it does have some problems. And it has crossplays, and so. But I gotta go back to the graphics though. Like graphically, this game is so satisfying to
It
play,
is. It is
and
an
everyone
absolutely
looks
gorgeous game
great.
to play. Yeah, it is a genuinely gorgeous game.
It
Um,
only looks better when I look at it, and so the armor is the last. That's sort of like the last problem to fix, in my opinion. I think once we get past that, we're home free. But for the most part, I still think the game is fantastic.
I mean, I think maybe I'll play negative. I'd push back a little on maybe on some of the like Heat Smash, for instance. My problem with Heat Smash, and it's the same problem I have with Rage Art. And again, this is informed by the character I play and how I play him. There are too many kind of get out of pressure free moves in this game. So like, if you're pressuring someone, instead of making them kind of play frames properly, guess the mix, whatever, they have, depending on the character, two to three free get off me buttons around, and one of them being Rage Art can hit from. I mean, I've something I've learned is that Rage has significantly different properties when it hits. So I think Standing Rage hits for around 55. Because I remember I sent you a replay of me against the Lee player where he hit me with Rage Art and it hit for, and I'm not exaggerating, people, 85 damage. I checked. It was abhorrent. But I think that might be as a result of the property of the move interrupted. I'm not entirely sure I understand exactly how, but there is some element of that. So a problem I have with Heat Burst is that kind of it stops the game. It is usually very, very quick. Well, it is very, very quick um on startup. It's so quick that it's almost, if you do it properly, it should be pretty much invulnerable. Unless like you can get knocked out of it from a move that if you time it incorrectly, like there's a move about to land as you heat burst. But I would say 90% of the time I've popped heat burst or I've had heat burst popped on me. It functions as a get off me card. It has insane range. So I know this is very scrubby, but I have no issues throwing it out in neutral because it's got insane range and it's safe and it immediately puts you into heat, which like has I don't dislike heat. I think I talked about this in the last episode. I'm just kind of disappointed that they're not more that every character doesn't have more interesting shit to do with their heat. Like I appreciate that June, um, her kind of
And Asuka,
and Asuka, yeah, but June in particular with the healing thing because she hurts herself and then she heals herself and she doesn't have to hurt herself in heat. Um, Whereas again, to take, I apologize for talking about it so much, but my experience with the game is primarily Quaron based. Like he's really good in heat in that he gets chip off certain moves. He gets enhanced chip, which in if you're in right stance and you've got the back two going, that's brilliant. Um, he gets his hell sweep back in left flamingo, right flamingo. Um, like it's good. Don't get me wrong, Hwoarang is good in Heat, but I feel like that kind of Heat is boring. It's like let's just enhance the properties of certain moves. I like the more kind of systemic approach of June's Heat, Kazuya's to a certain extent, and that puts him in devil form. So I don't really object to Heat. I think my primary objection to the Heat system is Heat Burst. If there were I might actually take the opposite approach and remove Heat Burst entirely. I don't know, they won't, obviously, but I might have removed Heat Burst entirely and actually given more ways to engage Heat. Um, because as it is, if I think if you were to right now blanket delete Heat Burst from the game, you have a problem in that some characters, their heat engagers form a staple part of their moveset. So, for instance, we talked about Lost 443, or maybe it's a running three. Everybody knows what move I mean, the giant step kick. Like that's arguably his best move. It's a heat engager. Um, Victor has the same thing. Eddie has the same thing. Whereas a lot of characters don't have kind of one of their go-to moves be a heat engager. Now, I'm not sure that's the overall that every character should have their best move be a heat engager. Um, but it kind of reminds me, and maybe this will be an odd take, and it's something I'm aware I'm a little bit on an island with. I always loved crushing blows in MK11. I thought they were a really fun way of in theory, of emphasizing certain moves in your character's moveset, which was sorely needed in MK11. So I wouldn't massively object to that if you in Tekken had a reason to gravitate more towards certain moves because they were heat engagers. So I think one of my primary objections right now is that heat burst. If heat burst was gone and there were more ways to engage heat, I feel like the game would, I think it would flow better.
You could say your wish is going to partially come true. I think because in Tekken 7 they kept adding new moves. They added a lot actually. They had wall bounce eventually. Like Asuka's forward 1+2, that armored move where she goes like full mid screen almost. Uh, if you were at the corner, that would knock against the wall, bounce you, and she got a full bread and butter after that with a corner enter. So that's gone. Thankfully, I'm kind of glad that's not back. But I think they are going to do exactly what you said regarding to heat properties. I think that is going to be played with and tooled quite a bit. I think that's going to happen. As for heat burst, I don't personally feel the pain of heat burst. To me, there's so many other things that are bothering me more, but I don't feel like I've lost many matches because of heat burst. So my opinion may change over time, but right now I'm fairly neutral on it. I kind of treat it like X Factor. And it's kind of what it is, but just not nearly as powerful, which is perfect. That's what I wish the original X Factor mode had been in MVC3. So
And in terms of the meta moving towards a kind of more um, psychotic aggression, what's your approach on that? I mean, I think I have a slight hot take on it, which might be again slightly hypocritical playing horror. Um, but maybe I'll spare my hot take until after you say something much more sensible and logical.
I think I have the reverse hot take, which I don't think the game is quite as offensive as everyone says it is.
Okay.
I think it's kind of like a mirage because I think when it comes to Tekken, like if you do the traditional Tekken 7 stuff, it's mostly the same. And the mix, if you can react to all the lows and you can break all the throws, it's mostly still Tekken. It's just the turn ambiguity, which really I think airs just as much on defense as it does offense. Because I'm on offense and I'm at advantage, and suddenly I'm on the ground because I didn't bait the armor move. That's my real problem right now. I don't think the game is even really that offensive yet. Um, but yeah, your turn. What do you got for me?
I mean, just to follow up on that, you say the game isn't that offensive yet. Have you played many Fangs or Dragonoffs?
A couple of things. No Dragonals yet.
Yeah, that might explain that.
Well, I think if you make the backdash better, some of the Dragonoff issues go away. It's just the fact that he can kind of lock you down indefinitely. But I mean, that was true in Tekken 7 too. He's kind of an offensive character. That's what he
I mean,
does.
I agree
And
with
that
that,
eventually
but
got nerfed too.
I think the like I agree he plays the same as he did in Tekken 7 broadly, but like the game rewards that style of play so much more than Tekken 7 did in my view.
With the damage increased, I somewhat agree with that. The damage is significantly higher in this game.
But even the
At low levels,
range.
actually. The damage is pretty high in Tekken 7 too, to be honest with you, but go on.
Well, yeah, I mean to be fair, like I we don't have an Akuma. I mean, we don't have Akuma busting out like basically touch of death combos at like Evo
Or
top eight
Julia, even.
or Julia or Geese. I understand Geese was pretty fucking buff too. Um,
Yeah, I do not miss that character. Oh man, I fucking hate Geese.
so yeah, my hot take is that fighting games as a whole, so I say as a whole, the big three fighting games, because I'm not familiar with the kind of the deeper level of fighting games, even like Strive, that kind of GG and BlazBlue, but MK, Street Fighter, and Tekken are all surfing, I think, a similar meta wave in that they are all trying to like for a long time there was this kind of current of thought in that to design a good fighting game, you need to give players like options, give people things to do. And I think this kind of reached maybe something of a crescendo um when kind of SF5 was still going, SF6 hadn't dropped, and MK11 was out because MKX was wacky as fuck. You could be pressing 1,000 things. Um, but it seemed like I'm not kind of throwing shade at the guy or putting him on blast, but it's something Maximilian Dude obviously has always kind of advocated for that. Let people be doing things when they play fighting games. You always want to have things to manage options. You want a game to be fast, to be flowing, to be aggressive, which is fine. And I could definitely see the pushback because I never played SF5, but I understand it was a little bit lethargic. I could be wrong on that, but that's my understanding. And MK11, I think we all know, again, as one of the last MK11 fans, I have no problem admitting that game before Fujin, who just basically ruined any competitive scene. And actually before Jackie and Joker as well, to be fair. But that game is not the most creative game in the world. It's quite staid. It's very kind of heavy feeling. But now I feel like fighting games have overcorrected as a whole. That they are with the drive impact and drive rush in SF, with the bootleg MVC shit that's going on in MK. I'm not sure if you've been paying attention to MK1. I barely have. But like the chameleon cameo, it's basically like an unbalanced. I mean, it is an unbalanced assist game. That's I would argue assist games are almost by definition unbalanced. And then the really it's seeming to me, and respectfully disagree with you, the kind of incredibly aggressive meta of Tekken, the way that they are developing Tekken 8, the way I think Michael Murray kind of tweeted, why would you want to sidestep when you could block and punish? And I think that is emblematic of the direction Tekken is going. And I think some people, I want to distinguish between making something more beginner friendly or casual friendly and overly aggressive. I think it's fair to say offensive and aggressive play is more approachable. It brings more people in because people do want to do things. Um, I've no doubt people have more fun um, coming up with a 400 damage combo in MK1 than they did, like, I don't know, getting all their kind of footsie crushing blows down in MK11. Um, and because some people genuinely, and some people, maybe even most people, genuinely find that style of gameplay more enjoyable. But I don't think that's necessarily beginner friendly. I think what's beginner friendly and what I think really should stay is stuff like the special style, is stuff like modern controls in SF, because it just simplifies getting into the fighting game. It simplifies understanding a fighting game. Um, it almost reminds me of something Ed Boon said about Liu Kang, the design philosophy of Liu Kang in the arcade of MK, of the arcade era for MK, which was that you could teach your girlfriend to play Mortal Kombat using Liu Kang. It's like forward, this button, high fireball, forward, this button, low fireball, that kind of stuff. I think that's a really, really good idea, and I want to separate that from this. I don't want people to conflate the two things I'm talking about. I don't think catering to a more casual, beginner friendly audience is necessarily a bad thing. I think it's a great thing, and I think some of the innovations in terms of special style and in terms of modern controls, because both of them and I remember there was a brief moment, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe that it has come back in vogue. There was a brief moment where the top players in Street Fighter were like, yeah, maybe having like one button critical arts um and zero kind of input issues is worth the damage reduction and the moveset reduction, but that never seemed to crystallize at the highest level. Um, you rarely see anyone using special style past I'm gonna say like yellow, orange ranks in Tekken 8. I mean, if I see someone flick on special style, it's usually a panic thing. Um, or if you're playing against a Mishima, you know that they're going for the easy hell sweep. So I want to distinguish between those two, but I think there has been to get back to my point, and apologies for the tangent. I think there has been a concerted upswing in the big three fighting games towards catering more to that maybe stream friendly style you call it, where there's a lot going on screen. It's very aggressive. It's very hyper. It's very ADHD to use it to put it in very kind of shorthand. And I think to a certain extent, games again, fighting games are now kind of paying the price for that, where people are kind of burned out on the casino element of Tekken 8, the fact that there's so much going on in Tekken 8 that you can like conceivably, and look, I've done this. You get one whiff punish. You can get your ass kicked for an entire round. You get a rage art, running three, puts you at +6, pop heat, heat hits, wall splat, kill. Um, and that's very that must be ludicrously aggressive, ludicrously annoying to lose a round against because it's incredible scrub shit. So I feel like a lot of the um, distaste people have towards the current Tekken meta and maybe the jadedness comes from the fact that all three big fighting games right now, and look, we can talk about the. I almost don't want to put MK into that because I feel like MK1 does not deserve. I know the last patch has improved it, but in terms of the holistic design. Like I've said before, I'll say it again. I disagree with how SF6 is designed, and to a certain extent, I do with Tekken, but they are coherently and cogently planned and executed. This is how those games were meant to play. I don't think any thought really went into MK1 at all, basically. But it is still. I mean, is it still commercially? It's still part of the big three. Its tournament numbers would beg to differ, but I think they're I think Tekken is maybe getting the sharp edge of that jadedness because people have essentially gone between all three games and had a very, very similar meta, a very, very similar conception of how the game should be played. In that, in each specific instance, admittedly in different ways, the aggression and the doing things element is has been dialed up to 10. So I guess that's my hot take.
I would say, in a way, though, it's a good thing. I think
Okay.
what's happening with Tekken 8, I'm glad it happened now and not later, because this is going to kill the buff only narrative once and for all. Or it better. If it doesn't, I've lost all faith in the FGC. But I think it's going to be done after this. And we're going to be past this horrible. Because in 2017, there was this, like, oh, where's neutral? I guess everyone just hates neutral now. And then Samurai Showdown came out and no one fucking played it. So it's like, okay, did you want neutral or not? And that killed that narrative. I think Tekken 8 is going to kill this narrative. I think that's really good. Maximilian had a bit to do with it. My worry with the whole loose narrative was that it was painfully vague, and no one could agree on what the perimeters were, on what is too loose and what's not loose enough. And it sounds like the perimeter was fun, and I'm like, that's a bad idea. That is going to get abused. And developers are going to have no idea what to do with that, and it looks like we were right. That's kind of where we're at right now. And thankfully, I think we're heading to a much better direction, because all the buff-only people largely went radio silent, with a few exceptions, but I think we're heading to a good direction on that. But it wasn't just Max.
No, I don't want
I
to say it
think
was
it
just
was
Max.
also...
I don't say that at all.
Well, I think in just general, it was just viewership. I think they didn't like the way the game looked when neutral was the predominant factor. They want like it's sort of a weird accident of history that the MK11 finals were so hype back in 2022 for Evo because like it was a Fujin mirror, and it was 80% both characters blowing wind at each other that did no damage. So it just and everyone loved it. It's like, wow, this is so sick. And the reason it was sick is because you can see you can see the intelligent decision making behind the Fujins. But that's the norm, though. I think people want their game to look cool to someone who does not understand it, and they understood offense was the key to that. And I mean, they're not wrong. I mean, Grand Blue was at Evo, and unfortunately, the meta in vanilla Grand Blue was just get in your standing medium range and press the standing medium button and hope the opponent jumps, and then you do your anti-air. And if you can get Oki, great. If not, you get back into your standing medium range and you press your standing medium button. And people were like, okay, we need more than this. This is way too singular dimensional. And that now Rising is a more offensive game. So I don't know if we're ever going back to the Samurai Showdown. I hate calling Injustice 2 a neutral game because it's not. But the ideas of neutral are there.
Yeah, I mean, I think like when we say it's not a bad thing. I mean, I'm coming at this from the perspective of someone who has always had um a particular loathing for like again, it's a phrase I've used before, psychotically offensive games, by which, when I say that, I usually mean MVC. Like, I just, games where you have kind of frequent touch of death combos, and I know MVC ended up becoming more of a setup game than touch of death, but I just feel like they're very boring. I find them very boring to watch. I find them very boring to play. Um, and I mean, to be fair, like MK1 looks cool to people who don't know how to play it because there's so much shit going on at all times. And viewership for competitive MK1 has cratered. Interest in competitive MK1 has cratered, and that is separate for me from necessarily the problems of MK1, which are we could do a 5 hour podcast on the problems of MK1 and how it was from the word go. Uh, in hindsight, people were pointing out the problems with this game, the problems with the design philosophy, NRS's approach and attitude. I could genuinely talk about that for days. But strictly from a competitive perspective, it does look cool. If you just look at some of the combos, like Ermac, for instance, a lot of Ermac combos look cool as fuck, but it hasn't really done a huge amount to keep the game alive. And I think NRS have put a decent amount of money towards the competitive scene. So and in terms of say, well, okay, outside the competitive scene, in terms of viewership, uh, it does not do well on Twitch, and from all the infographics I've seen, and none of the big fighting game streamers, and specifically Max, basically ever stream the game. Now I know that's a bad example because Max is not a Mortal Kombat fan. I would characterize Max as a Predator Alien fan, which is why he loves MKX so much. Um, but in terms of it not being a bad thing, I think it's dependent. Um, I think Street Fighter and Tekken will tank it because I think they have a much more dedicated, hardcore fan base in terms of who are willing to maybe accept it. But if you're if Mortal Kombat is your primary fighting game, um, it might look really really cool to play to watch, but clearly that's not affecting people or driving people to watch it, and it's clearly not driving people to play it either because it consistently has less players online than MK11 on Steam. Again, slightly bad example, but it should not happen to begin with. So I might push back a little bit on it not being a bad thing.
I wonder too, because as far as MK1 goes, I think the lower viewership may be related to the people buying the game actively not watching MK12. I think that's. I called it MK1 earlier. I promised myself I would never do that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
do that too. Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting. I think if I were to give a counter, I would say MK12 is not truly an offensive game in my opinion because all the heavy, like offensive artillery, is locked behind the cameos, and the cameos are largely just, as far as I know, it's like 4 or 5 characters. There's not that many cameos in play. Like, there's not a lot of like, I don't want. My mind was going to go to Shijinko, but that's kind of a straw man. You don't see a whole lot of like Scorpion cameo, to my knowledge. I could be wrong.
Well,
But
the
it's
meta of
largely
that
like
seems to
Chameleon and Kung Lao, right?
yeah, but the meta of that seems to change. Like I remember when I first dropped the game because I kept playing Invasions in the vague hope that the franchise I love was in there somewhere. It wasn't, spoiler alert. But at the times, like Sonya was a solidly mid to low tier cameo, and Sonya is considered a really good cameo now. Same for Goro. Goro, I think it's
Interesting. I knew about
Goro.
Goro. I did not know about Sonya.
Yeah, apparently Sonya is considered a pretty good cameo now, and there's a Kano who, I mean, in the this is turning into a brief MK12 cast. Kano in the beta, everybody was mad into Kano, and then he kind of fell out of fashion. But apparently, you can convert. Peacemaker has like a Raiden torpedo move, um, that's just incredibly fast from mid screen, and you can convert that into a full combo, um, with uh, Goro or Kano, or you can make it safe with Goro and Kano. So I just feel like uh, one thing I will actually say for MK1, MK12 is the meta has evolved a reasonable amount, to be fair, and I actually think NRS have done a better job than they usually do keeping the top tiers fresh. I mean, Cage and Kenji are still there, but Raiden has dropped down a little bit. Baraka they hamstrung. Um, there was a very brief period where Melina was considered to be a really good character, and none of the DLC is seems well. Peacemaker seems pretty strong, but uh, I don't think the people have decided on Ermac yet. He feels strong. Quan Chi sucks. Whereas if we compare that to MK11, and I say again, I say this as the last MK11 fan, um, like if you look at a tier list from month two of that game, it's recognizably the same as a tier list from the end of the game minus the DLC. Like the only real change is people realize how broken Jackie was, and they realize how to play against Sonya. So you essentially swap Jackie is mid tier with Sonya as top tier, and otherwise it's basically the same. It's Lou, Cetrion, and Sonya slash Jackie at the top tier. Whereas I don't feel like that's a problem with MK1. I feel like that's one of the few things I would say in MK1's favor in terms of design, graphics, story, content. It's an abomination. It's possibly the worst Mortal Kombat game ever made, and that includes special forces. But that is one
Well, I
thing
think
I will.
independently of the gameplay, people can see that too. I think one huge problem with MK12 is that it doesn't look good at square one. Like when you boot up the match, it just immediately it looks wrong. And I think like non-competitive types can immediately see that.
Yeah, wrong is
And I'm assuming, yeah,
I was going to say wrong is the right word because in terms of like graphics, it looks fine. Like I remember booting it up for the first time and being pleasantly surprised because I always thought it looked. I don't think the game translates well in stills at all. In stills, it looks so jank and it looks like a mobile game. It translates better in motion, and some of the particle effects are gorgeous. But like I re-downloaded MK11 just as a podcast game essentially for the PS5. I actually think MK11 on the PS5 looks better than MK12, and not in terms of its fidelity or its resolution. I think maybe it's a combination of art design and the usage of AI in developing MK12's outfits. The game looks wrong. I think that is the word I would use to describe how it looks. There's something wrong about it. I can't put my finger on it, but I know it looks off.
well, some characters are straight up not recognizable. And I'm not even talking about like the joke instances like Kuai Liang. I mean, some characters like Johnny Cage, like unless you kind of have a general idea of what Cage is about, he just looks like a dude to me. Smoke, just like I still think that yeah, the less said about that is the better. Rain does not look like Rain. Khan does not fucking look like Khan. The list goes on, and it's like if you don't know like who the characters are, and you do know who the characters are, but you don't like the way they look, then who's left? Like who's left to tune into Twitch?
That's true. That's true. I mean, I will say, like, I was not against. So we will end this MK discussion because no one gives a fuck about MK anymore. Um, like I wasn't against a lot of the redesigns and the idea of like it's a brave new world. Okay, fine, whatever. I wasn't even fundamentally against the Johnny redesign, but I do think it's fair to say they didn't get most of the redesigns right, which is a dangerous thing. Like if you're changing, and I will say I love Scorpion. I think Scorpion and Sub Zero have literally never looked better. I know the man buns are a bit much, and they look great with hoods, but if
That's
you
actually
just
the only thing I like. That's the
yeah,
only part of the costume I'm okay with.
okay,
It's everything else I hate.
you like the man bun?
Yeah, the man bun's fine. I
Oh,
wish Smoke. Why does Smoke not have the man bun? I would have rather Smoke had the fucking man bun. But yes.
honestly, the man bun would work better with smoke than the kind of 2009 scene kid hair they gave him.
Did you
Um,
see the new Rain costume? They gave Rain Smoke's MK9 hair. I
did
was
they?
about to break something.
I haven't seen that. Oh, hold on, for one rain.
I'll see if I can grab it for you too. But yeah,
Honestly,
I was just.
I don't dislike, yeah, like Rain, for instance. I don't dislike the attempt to let's change things up. I think Raiden benefited from it hugely. Now that could be because we were just fucking sick of it. No disrespect to Epcar. I think he's a fine voice actor, and I liked his Raiden, but I think we were all ready for a break from that Raiden. Um, but I think the danger when you're going to say, okay, we're going to redesign. Um, oh wow, sorry, I've just seen the Titan Rain skin. That is, first of
Yeah,
all, that's
yeah,
hideous.
that's
First of
it.
all, that is in no way recognizably Rain.
Well,
He's
the
not.
hair's nice. Everything else is
The
shit, but
hair's not
the
nice.
hair looks good.
Look at his fucking hairline. That's horrific. His hairline is halfway
I'm
back in his
fine with
head.
it.
I mean, look, I can't.
I would take that.
Well, yeah, neither of us can talk. I mean, to be fair, it's not the hairline for me; it's the patch on top. But like that just looks awful. No, that. I mean, look, I would prefer that hair on Smoke. Um, but why is he not purple?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I
That's
feel
a
like
really fucking good
I
question.
think you know that meme of the Australian. I think he's an imam going, "Ugh, brother, ugh." I feel like that.
No, I
If
don't think I know that one.
I will link it for you. Anybody who knows that meme, it's a great meme. But that is me looking at this costume. That is foul. And some of the Titan skins have been okay, but I think the big problem with a lot of the redesigns is they just if you're gonna do it, it has to work. Um, and I have the very strong feeling playing MK12 that I kind of got a little bit in MK11, but much stronger in MK12 is it's an independently, and I think it's I think Chancholo is still in charge of it. It's an independently conceived universe someone has grafted onto Mortal Kombat, and there is such a clear and tangible clash between the two. They're not set in correctly. It's a square peg in a round hole. So for instance, I feel like I mean Kronika is the obvious example, but even something like Shao Kahn, and he'll always be Shao Kahn. He's not General fucking Shao. He's Shao Kahn. Um, like why does he have scaly shit? Why does he have scaly dragon arms? Why does he have stupid fucking horns on his head? Like I feel like this was a character somebody workshopped and said, where can I who in this universe can I change to be like that guy and then just eventually make that guy? And I feel like that's what's happened to Mortal Kombat, if that makes sense.
I mean, it does make sense, and it's not going away. That's the reality for MK right now. And I mean, like I think I know why Smoke doesn't have that hair. I think if you put that hair on modern Smoke, he no longer looks or acts like he just graduated from middle school, which is one of my big problems with Smoke right now. Um, and yeah, just we're stuck with this George Clooney bullshit. And when you put that on a Twitch stream in a top 8, it just doesn't look good. Now, what I may do for my own homework is I may watch the Combo Breaker top 8 for MK12. I don't make any promises, but I might do it. And
They
I'll
got eight
take
people.
notes. I'll try to figure out why. What's up?
I said I'm surprised they got 8 people.
I mean, it'll probably be slightly more than what we get at Evo this year, but we'll see. I really like what you said about Rain's colors. It was like, why is he not purple? Because kind of circling back to Tekken,
Well, we can get back to
they
second.
they knew enough to get Eddie's colors right. What's up?
I said, yeah, we can take this back to second.
Yeah, well, I mean, like Eddie Goro is green. You fucking know why? Because Eddie Goro wears green. Like, just yeah. When you look at Rain and he's not purple, it's just so immediately noticeable. And you look at Eddie in Tekken 8, he's green. It it's almost like it's the easiest thing in the world to do is get a character's colors right, and they can't do that. I'm
Yeah,
not super strict on colors in some contexts, but I mean, it's Rain. He is the purple ninja. That is his defining characteristic,
not
right?
only
So,
is it
yeah,
is a
go on.
defining characteristic, it's his origin story. It's a pun. It's Purple Rain. That's the joke. That's why for like 15 years, Ed Boon was like, yeah, no one wants this character. He's a Prince pun. It's a joke. Why do you people want this fucking
Yeah,
character? But
it's not Golden Wrath of Khan Rain. It's
right?
Purple Rain, yeah.
But like, I am a little bit stricter on colors, and we can take this back to Tekken. Um, and this is this is a very general complaint. I fucking hate, and maybe this is more prevalent in the European scene than it is anywhere else. I hate when people customize a character to not look like that character. The sheer amount, like if you play a Kazuya, and anybody who's European listening to this will know exactly what I mean. If you play a Kazuya, a Paul, or a Law in Europe, if you get matched with that character online, there's a 70% chance someone has made him look like Drake. Someone has given him the stupid buzz cut and a beard. And I don't know if that's because there's somebody making that character look like themselves, which itself is incredibly cringe. But like I hate characters being customized to not look like themselves, if that makes sense. It's a real
Yeah,
fucking bugbear of mine. And the fact that MK11 or back that MK has introduced like shaders, which really, it's just again in MK is the last game where that makes sense. The game where it least makes sense because like again, basically the origin story of Mortal Kombat of like the most popular element of Mortal Kombat is you got the yellow one, you got the blue one, you got the green one, and then you bring in the gray one, and there's a secret red one. Like the fact that I just listed colors and you know exactly the characters I'm referring to and their lore. And like there's a black one in the background, a black color. Don't take that out of context. Um,
I
don't
was
do
thinking
not
that too.
do not take that out of context. If you are listening to this, you are forbidden from clipping that out of context. I was referring to Noob Saibot, not Jax. I was referring to Noob Saibot. Thank you. And he's black because he was burned alive to a crisp, not because of it's not a racial thing. Anyway, the fact that like Mortal Kombat, Mortal
The Shadow one, if you will.
the Shadow one, yes. Um, Mortal Kombat is a game more than probably any other game defined by simple color choices. And it boggles my mind that they're like, yeah, we can just fuck with colors. We can make Scorpion green. It's like, no, you can't make Scorpion fucking green. Reptile's green. Anyway, to circle this back to Tekken. Where did we leave off? The meta. Yeah, that's what we left off Tekken. So I do feel like, I hope you
Well, this
enjoyed
is a
that.
perfect segue to the shop too. Like we
Yeah,
still need to go over
exactly.
the shop stuff even. Yeah.
And like, well, I hope it's not coming from the same place. I would hope that the decision. It's hard to say that considering all three Street Fighter, Tekken, and Mortal Kombat all share their a gross monetization. Um, where and I'd almost want to forgive it with SF5 because I understand what saved SF5 was essentially DLC costumes. That game was going to be abandoned, and it would have been whenever a game is functionally abandoned or it makes a serious loss. Like we can say Tekken 4 almost famously almost killed the franchise. Tekken Tag 2 again famously almost killed the franchise. Ironically, Tag 2 is an incredible Tekken game. Um, but whenever you get that, and say if SF5 was that, and the DLC costumes kind of save that, that's great. But there is a distinct difference between that and like even I don't want again to say the guy's name again in case people think I'm putting him on blast. Not that he would give a fuck, but like when Max, who I would define as one of the uber Capcom fans, one of the most um I don't want to call him quite well, Max is a weeb, I'll call him a weeb. He's a weeb level Capcom fan. Is like saying, sorry, why are you charging fucking this amount for a goddamn costume? Um like it is gross, and I'm hoping that the I'm hoping it's not all coming from the same place of lowest common denominator, driving people towards the game, driving people towards monetization. Now, I'm absolutely not willing to cut NRS any credit in that regard, and you can say WB, but like I get WB is probably making the call, but Ed Boon's still cashing his checks. He's not doing this in sufferance. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not really willing to cut NRS a huge amount of credit, and similarly, I'm not willing to cut Bandai Namco any credit or Tekken any credit in terms of the shop. But I would hope that in terms of the meta design of how Tekken and Street Fighter play is is coming from a different wellspring than the gross monetization of the shop and the battle pass and Street Fighter's extra costumes.
I think it's hard to tell if we have any victors in this front because no one knows the numbers in those Ninja Turtle costumes for SF6.
Yeah,
I don't think we'll ever find out the numbers for the costume threes.
I don't
I
even
guess the
know.
number three, maybe the number two. I don't know.
I
They
don't
look
even know
like
what.
trash. I
I
hated
don't.
almost all of them.
Yeah, I don't even know what Ken's third costume is. I'm gonna look that up now.
It's bad. He's got uh what
Like a
skinny
red
jeans. I think is the word I would
and a
use.
red leather jacket. Yeah, that looks like dog shit.
Well, most of them do, and everyone was like gushing over Chung Li, and I'm like, that's her worst costume. What are you talking
He
about?
kind of looks
Like,
like Edge. If anybody remembers Edge, I mean, most people would know Edge, the wrestler. If you remember him in like Temp, I know this reference will be lost on you, but in like 2000 to 2002, um, Edge suddenly lost like 40 pounds of muscle and a huge amount of bone growth in like 4 months. It's not that he was on steroids or anything, but he has that. He kind of looks like that with the gigantic caveman chin and forehead. Anyway, sorry about that. Go on, Temp.
um, I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, SF6.
Yeah.
And they revealed some of the new costumes that are coming out, and they also look like trash. Nothing looks good for whatever reason, and they're charging like somewhere between $6 to $8. So until we know what the sales are in those costumes, and we'll likely never find out, we may have like a silent victor in this front and not know it, but it's just impossible to tell.
I mean,
And
I feel like SF maybe we might get a victory, but I feel like there's a lot of I'm going to use the term pay pigs. I think the correct term is whales, but I prefer to think of them as pay pigs because it's more degrading. Like I feel like there are a significant amount of people who will put up money to buy whatever next Deadly Alliance remaster skin. I will say to their credit, um, what was the skin? They did a skin recently in MK that was fucking awesome. God damn it. Oh, the MK movie skin, Scorpion's MK movie skin. That looks fucking great.
oh yeah, I
That
was
looks fucking
thinking
good.
Deadly Alliance Shang.
Oh, I hate the Deadly Lion Shang because it's the wrong face. It's the wrong face. Like the Deadly Lion
Maybe.
Shang, he needs that. And no disrespect to that actor because I know that is modeled off a guy, but that guy, the face looks too like Deadly Lion Shang when he's in old man form. That looks cool, but in his normal form, the face isn't pointed enough. Like Deadly Lion Shang, he looks like a sorcerer. He's got the beard. He's kind of haggard. He's kind of weathered looking, and MK1 Shang is too he's too useful looking. Now I will say the Kari Higoku Tagawa model that wouldn't have worked with that at all. But no, I didn't like. And Deadly Lion Shang is my favorite Shang. I fucking love that costume. I don't think that worked at all.
Is it just the well? What's interesting is Deadly Alliance Shang is very like baggy and barrel shaped, and it's weird seeing him be so skinny in that costume now. But other than that, like in motion, I think it looks great. I don't really care about the movie skin. I do think it looks good. I don't think people are wrong about that. It's just I the demand was never there for me. I never really wanted movie skins from
I think
'95.
it's a combination
Maybe
of the
more
fact
for sub.
I think it's a combination of the fact it's a movie skin and it's just a ninja looking costume. It's a plain, authentic Mortal Kombat ninja skin, if that makes sense.
I'll retract a bit. For Reptile, I would really like that. I think that would look really good for Reptile.
I'm pretty happy with Reptile's UMK3 skin. Again, we don't need to get back into MK, but my favorite Mortal Kombat character, just for context, is Human Reptile, explicitly Human Reptile. And for so long, and Temp, you'll remember this, I was like, bargaining. I'm not sure what stage of grief bargaining is, but I was in that stage where I can live with the crocodile transformation. He's human reptile, but no, I can't. I've reached a stage where I can't live with that. It's fucking dog shit.
Damn, I
So
tried learning the character. I couldn't do it.
yeah, it's just, and I'm not like you don't like gross out stuff. I'm okay with gross out stuff. I'm a bug guy, so temp like hates like Devora, for instance, with the holes in the skin. I'm cool with that. That's not the reason I hate Devora. I love bugs. I keep bugs as pets.
Well, he just looks dumb. He looks like Dennis Hopper from the Mario Brothers movie. I don't
Yeah, he
like
looks
it.
awful.
It looks so disappointing.
Yeah,
It's the polarization between the really cool ninja design and the interruption of the really cool ninja design. I can't do it.
it's the way it morphs. It's like it's so like this green like circle of mucus that goes halfway down his body and then comes back up. It look I appreciate technically it's probably technically quite difficult to achieve like the morph effect they were looking for, but it doesn't change the fact it looks like dog shit.
And that took so much work. The amount of like hours that went into making that functional in the game was all for nothing because I want to say everyone hate. I know some people who like it quite a bit. My hope is they are the minority.
I mean, if they do,
And
if you are
no
listening to this
shade
and
on
you
them,
like
but
that, no, I will throw shade on them. You're wrong. You're objectively wrong. That's like I know everybody has an opinion and it's a subjective opinion, but that's like saying a book is better if you cover all the words on the book with ketchup. It's objectively incorrect. No, if you like that, you are objectively incorrect.
I don't think we'll see it back again. Because I mean, even if it was half and half, which I don't think that I want to say at least 60% of the people did not like that change to reptile. But if it's 50-50, that's still like we did all that work for 50-50. So I'm hoping that this is going to be buried into MK12 and never seen again.
Well, to get us back
But or we
on
may just not get reptile again. Yeah.
yeah, well, to get us back on topic, this is something I was going to say in terms of like silent victories. Um, I feel like I do think we will get a technically a long term silent victory in MK12 in that I think the drop off in interest I mean it sold well, but it did not sell what MK11 did. Now MK11 benefited I think a lot from the MKX hype as much as I fucking loathe MKX. Um, I do think we'll get that silent victory in terms of the kind of the jadedness it's created. I'm not sure we'll get that with Tekken. Um, I feel like um the battle pass in the shop. I do think in Tekken, and they're incredibly low effort. I mean, we know the battle pass is low effort, but even like to take the King's Tekken 2 skin, which I have wanted back literally since I was like 4 years old, with the blue shirt and the white pants and the tie. It makes no sense why King is wearing that, but I just think it's a really cool skin. I see that I see that a lot online, and it's so fucking lazy. It looks awful. The only Tekken shop skin that looks remotely good is Nina in the catsuit. Like again, I'm a Hwarang main. There's a Hwarang costume in the shop. I never even considered buying it because it looks awful. Um, so despite how low effort it is, and maybe because of how low effort it is, there has got to be almost no work in that. I mean, most of the battle pass itself is importing shit from Tekken 7, importing assets from Tekken 7. Um, like the cyber suits, you do that for one character and you copy paste one male, one female, you copy paste it to everybody else, and a bear and Jack. Um, so I do think I think certainly in terms of SF, I really don't think the Ninja Turtle shit sold well. I don't think again, I'm not as plugged into SF as you. Um, I don't think the Ninja Turtle shit sold well at all. I don't think the third costume sold well at all. I think Akuma is going to sell fucking gangbusters. I think Akuma will be responsible for a colossal uptick in player base because, again, the only thing I don't like about Akuma is the lion mane design, but we've digressed enough off Tekken. But I think I think in Tekken might be the one area where we do not see we categorically don't see that silent victory because the
Real
monetization
quick, I'm a
gone.
little skeptical on the Akuma uptick. By the way,
Yeah, of course
I
I am.
don't. I'm of the opinion that Akuma came too late, and
Wow,
that most
okay.
people have moved on by now. I
I
think for
don't
the competitive side, the people who got to like Diamond, that's where the uptick is going to be. But I don't think everyone else is coming back. I think they played World Tour and they moved on.
I mean in terms of the kind of I suppose the casual element who would have played World Tour and moved on. I'd agree with that, but I mean, I dropped SF a little bit late. I think most people, certainly in kind of the scene I would play in and kind of the Discord scene, seem to drop SF. Now I know fucking Benev will listen to this and be like, I still play S. We know you still play SF, Benev. Um, but I feel like mid July, late July, kind of when the MK1 hype started, that's when you start to see a bit of a drop off in SF. Maybe I've got my dates wrong, but I feel like I was playing it a little bit later than everybody else, and I've barely touched it since September.
My last match was on August 13th, so yeah, that's about right.
And I think that we played around that. Was that the match, the set we do not speak of with DJ that just
Yes,
broke
that
me? Yeah,
was the
that was.
set.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about that set.
No, we don't.
No, we don't need
We
to talk
don't need to
about
talk about that at all.
that set at all. Sorry, I'm just having flashbacks over here. Yeah, but I mean, I'll come back and play because I know people will come back and play it. I'll play Akuma, see what he's like, and get washed again. Um, Ideally, I won't play any DJs because I emotionally, I'm not over what happened in that set. I probably never will be. But yeah, I do think. Um, Sorry, I think. Hey, hey, hey! Fuck off!
Yeah, I was going to say, are you just hearing hey, hey, hey over and over
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
your head back
I'm
and forth?
hearing. What's up, man? I hate it so much. I'm actually sweating. I'm physical. It's like 7:30 in the morning in Ireland. It's like 9 degrees Celsius outside, and I'm physically sweating remembering that set. Okay, shake it off. I gotta shake it off right now. Okay. Um, Tekken, yeah. Tekken, the game where I beat Temp. That's fine. It's fine. There's no DJ in Tekken. There's no DJ in Tekken. It's fine. Um, Although if there was a DJ in
Well, there
Tekken,
is, but it's Devil Jin. But yeah.
oh yeah, I was actually gonna say stylistically, it might actually be Lily in terms of just like you make fucking batshit crazy decisions, but they work. No, maybe Lars is that character. Um, who is that
Maybe,
character in
yeah.
Tekken? Well, yeah, maybe. Anyway, I
I
feel
always say
like
Devil Jin because literally Devil Jin, we call him DJ
DJ. Yeah, I get that, but I mean,
because we can.
I feel like Devil Jin. Like, I think I was higher on Devil Jin than he is in the tier list. But I feel like you have to play Devil Jin structured in a way. I mean, Morning Crow is bullshit, and his Psycho Crusher is absolute bullshit. But I feel like you can't get away with the just harebrained bullshit comeback decision making. I think people can now guess what happened in that set. You can't get away with the harebrained bullshit comebacks that DJ can with Devil Jin. I feel like he's not. Maybe Hwarang is the character for that. But yeah, I know. Tekken. So, yeah, I don't feel in terms of the monetization, the battle pass, the shop. Um, I don't feel we get that silent victory in Tekken. I could see for SF7 in what 2030, we'll probably all be dead by then. And I think it'll be around then we get the next Mortal Kombat. I could see them both going in a different direction, a significantly different direction than those games. Maybe that depends on whether or not WB still has MK. But I think the heavy monetization live service model. I'm not that plugged into gaming, so maybe I'm incorrect. Maybe my finger on the pulse is wrong. I play like 3 games. Um, I feel like that's reached a tipping point. Maybe now, maybe in the dystopian hell world we're moving towards, it doesn't matter. It's reached that consumer tipping point. There'll be enough pay pigs, enough whales to keep it going. But I feel like there's been a significant momentum shift against that in MK. And I do think you're correct in that I don't think it worked with Capcom. Um, Now the question in terms of
I don't know what they want from the season pass too. Like, if they want, like, if they're banking on the season pass or the battle pass to be very successful to run the servers, yeah, I think they're in bad shape. I don't think the rewards are there.
yeah, I mean at this stage I've probably completed the battle pass 3 times over. Like it's a very easy battle pass to complete. Um, it's the reward the mission reward, the experience you get is very generous. But like the only thing in the battle pass that was of any use was the karate gi for girls, so you could give Reina like a Heihachi costume. Um, but if they are banking on people buying the battle pass, I mean, I come across maybe one person in 10 who are using Battle Pass stuff. Now, that's not to say that maybe more have bought it, but if you bought it, I would presume you would use shit you've bought in it. Um, so from my, also we don't know the figures. Um, we probably never will know the figures, but I feel like if they're looking to use the battle pass to sustain the game, I don't think I don't think that they'll get anything from that. But I suspect they're using the battle pass just as a source of cheap profit because what they essentially did was they hamstrung customization to a horrific extent, and then are selling you the customization piecemeal in the battle pass. So I think the battle pass is just a long term way to make profit off the customization. I don't think maybe I'm wrong. I don't think that's being used to keep the game afloat. I think if anything's being used to keep the game afloat, it is the legacy costumes, which you do see a significant amount of online. Like the I don't see a lot of the Jin tracksuit from Tekken 4, which is strange because I think a lot of people wanted that back. I want the you remember the black and white Jin outfit from Tekken 4? That's the one I want back. I thought that looks so fucking cool. Um
I think so. Yeah, I think I
yeah,
vaguely remember that.
that is an awesome costume. But in terms of King's shirt, the Hwarang biker costume, like if they really want to keep the game afloat, if they really want to keep the game afloat for like the lifespan of the game, release King's Tekken 3 outfit with the Air Jordans and the sweats and the blue t-shirt and the grey mask. That is one of the coolest. That plus King's Tekken 3 stage, I will legitimately pay 15 quid for. Like I know it's the wrong
Well,
thing to
here's a
do, but fuck, that's awesome.
well that makes me think of something. As a thought experiment, how would you feel if one of your favorite like classic Tekken costumes was locked behind the end of a battle pass?
I mean, is it a free battle pass or a pay for battle pass?
I would say paid in this case, but I don't necessarily know exactly how the battle pass works for Tekken 8.
Yeah, I
I
mean, if
assume
there,
there's a paid portion, right?
well, so there, no, there's two separate battle passes. So there's a free battle pass and there's a paid battle pass. Now, if you go for the
Okay, it's
pay,
the same as Grand Blue then.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you have the paid battle pass, you will progress on the two of them simultaneously. If you don't pay for the paid one, you're locked out. And if you locked out of the paid one, and if you have the paid one, it doesn't actually pay for itself. What it pays for. So I think getting the battle pass, the premium battle pass, amounts to €10. I presume the currency is the same in America, which I think means it's more profitable for them here because I think the euro is a little bit stronger than the dollar right now. But it's so 10, insert your currency of choice, listener, 10 currency units, and you get six back by completing the battle pass, and then you have four spare to buy a costume is I think how their internal economics works. Um, so you like the battle pass technically if you complete the premium battle pass, it costs you 4 quid because you get six back. But if to answer the question, if let's say
Let's say paid
Huarong's
in this instance. Yeah.
yeah, let's say Huarong's well, certainly not the fucking the K-pop blindfold eye patch one. That was a fucking horrific costume. Um, so maybe like to be fair, and this is something when we do get around to finishing the roster, I think this is Warang's best look. Like I would like his Tekken 4 Army one back, but I don't think I would use it instead of the biker look or instead of even the his standard Dobuk look. Um, so that's a classic costume I really want back. Kazu's suit, his purple suit, his proper purple suit from um Tekken 2, not with the kind of scaly reptilian leather, like the actual proper purple suit. Um, or help me out here, Tim. Throw out a really great classic Tekken costume.
I mean, Asuka's Tekken 5 costume is immediately the one I'm
Is
thinking of at the
is that
moment.
not in the game?
No, it's definitely not in the game.
Is that not the
I
one of
wish it
the?
was.
Is
Her
that not
alternate
the?
in Tekken 5 is in the game, but not the primary.
Oh, it's the alternate one I'm thinking of, where she has the kind of straps around her shoulder.
And that one looks great.
I
That
like
is
that
a
costume.
fantastic costume.
To be fair, I think
But
that's
it's not the Tekken 5 plastic.
no, I think that's my favorite. That might be my favorite Asuka costume. So I might be a bad example of that one. I always when I played Asuka in Tekken 5, that was the one I used. Yoshi,
Yeah, I want her biker outfit so bad.
Tekken 3 Yoshimitsu is probably the best, most unanimous example. Like Tekken 3 Yoshimitsu is a fucking awesome costume. Um, yeah, I wouldn't be happy with that. Like, I don't play Yoshimitsu. I'm like, I'm neither intelligent nor stoned enough to play Yoshimitsu, and you need to be one of the two things. You need to be a super genius or just wasted to play Yoshimitsu. Um, but
Used to be that way. I would say he's significantly easier now,
oh,
though.
he is
He's like a
significantly
Soul
easier.
Calibur character now.
Yeah, he's very annoying to play. Um, I'm not sure how I'd like that. Like, I might be a bad example because if Hwarang gets like it would be hard for me to improve on Hwarang's biker costume. Well, it's more of a punk look than a biker look with the denim vest. Like I think that's a legitimately 10 out of 10 look for Hwarang. Um, but in theory, let's say that wasn't in the game, and the K-pop blindfold half cape horrific abomination from Tekken 7 is in the game. Um, no, even then, I think I'd stick with the because the default look for Hwarang, the Do book, the which is the Taekwondo word for a gi, like his martial arts uniform look. I think that's a strong look. If my main looked like shit, but I don't think any character looks like shit in Tekken, in Tekken 8. Maybe Nina, um, but no, does any character categorically look like shit in Tekken 8? Because it's not like MK1 where like a lot of these characters look like shit. Like,
I mean, Paul is probably like the definitive example.
but you can make Paul, you can make classic Paul, like that is in the game.
Yeah,
Um, like so a character
but I
that
would say
looks
no. I don't think anyone looks
yeah,
that egregious.
I don't think there's an example of a character that looks like shit that you cannot fix. Because like I think of again to go back to MK1, Smoke is the obvious example. You he looks like shit. Um, if you don't like the Rain redesign, Rain is gonna look like shit to you. I think Katana looks like shit. I think Melina looks like shit. Shao Kahn is you and you
I'm glad
basically
you said
can't
that
fix
about
it.
Katana. I agree, and I don't think like we're the majority on that. I think
Really, are we
like
minority on
for
that?
whatever reason, people like MK1 Katana.
No, I think Katana looks awful, and I loved Katana in MK11. I thought that was her honestly her strongest look. Um, and
I
I
don't
think
agree with that, but I think it looked better than what we got now.
well, you like the puffy pants. You like puffy pants from MKX, don't you?
It's better, but
So
like
I'm not big.
I'm all about like classic MK3 like Katana.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, you want the exposed thighs. Um, I no, I really did like her kind of like updated ninja look in MK2, in MK 11. But again, look, I'll suck dick for MK 11. We've established that. I'm the last MK 11 fan. Um, but yeah, I think I get the example you're going for, in that if you had to like, are you so stringently against monetization and battle pass that if the only way to make your main, the character you play, look good is by delving into the battle pass, would you do, or presume, and maybe this is a separate point, but or by buying a DLC costume? Um, I would consider the two things basically the same, but maybe they're different for you. Um, would I do it? Um, I don't know is the answer. I would hope not.
Well, you don't have to decide either. For me, my time is worth more than my money. So if there were good costumes that required me to put multiple hours into the game, that would be a big bummer for me.
You see,
I do it for Grand Blue, but I only have to do Grand Blue, so it's not a problem. If I
I
had to do
would
that with every fighting game, that would be a problem.
I strongly disagree because I love unlocking things, and this is probably a foundational reason why I like MK11. Like I love unlocking things, and not unlocking them in the MK1 sense. Was like this is just fucking repulsive. Um, I like being able to be like so, like in MK11, where if you wanted to make a character look like a classic version of that character, or get one of their other skins in like their classic coloration. So let's say that's in their character towers, right? Remember the character towers was like 5 tiers of it, and you have to progress through all of them, and there's different requirements to be met. Like you have to get X amount of fatalities, brutalities, fatal blows. I don't mind that. I don't mind that at all, and I love the MK11 crypt. I get it's one gigantic loot box. I get that, but I have no issue working towards that. I get time being more valuable than money, and from a strict perspective, I agree. But I have no problem being the hamster on the wheel, earning that shit. Um, I have a bigger problem conceptually paying for that shit because I still feel like if I buy the game, I should be able to get everything in the game. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like with
Well, that brings up a point though. Like,
yeah,
what if they take away the hamster wheel? That was my issue with Battle Pass. Is that if I don't do this pass, that costume's gone forever.
in terms of yeah, I guess I suppose
Like, if you
I've
don't do the
never
March Battle Pass, you just lose out on that Kuma costume.
well, I mean, do they? Because I know in other games, I think they bring Battle Pass back, or they bring content back,
They
or they put
might,
content in the
yeah.
store. Because I mean, it's free content. I'd be surprised if they didn't. It's free. It's like free money. But to take your point conceptually, probably not because to get into the hamster, I have to pay to get into the hamster wheel, right? So like with MK11, when I kind of re-download MK11, I boot it up. I know what I'm in for. Um, it's no, it's fundamentally no different to me than playing MK Deception as a kid and desperately trying to find every single Onyx coin in the fucking game because it costs like 3,600 to unlock Noob Smoke, and it was so hard to get that many Onyx coins, right? Um, or in Deadly Alliance, making sure you got every test your sight and test your might correct because that was the only source of platinum and Onyx coins in the game. Um, it's fundamentally no different that like the kind of MK11 hamster wheel is no different than that. Or if there's a free battle pass, I can accept that. And even if that battle pass has a costume that will expire and be gone into the ether forever, I don't like that. But if I can just get onto the hamster wheel, and look, this is I'm aware this makes me partially part of the problem. I have no problem with that. Well, I have a problem with it, but I'll still do it. But if I have to pay to get into the hamster wheel, that's where I draw the line.
I don't know, because like if the pass ends, and let's say my dog's in the hospital, or like I don't know, like maybe I'm having a hard month at work,
Yeah.
and the battle pass is gone, and there's no announcement when it will come back.
Yeah, I get that.
Ugh,
Yeah, I get it. I think
that's
so.
rough. But like speaking of the pay pigs, like I would be more than happy to be a pay pig. I'd be fine with that. My big problem with Street Fighter Six was they didn't sell costumes in bulk. You had to buy them individually. I'm like, hey, I'm willing to throw money at you. Should I give me some sort of bonus for blowing my wallet on like 17 costumes?
Okay,
And they were
so
like, no. Well, I'm like, well, fuck you then. I'm not buying anything. And that's exact. To this day, I have not purchased a single costume in SF6 after the initial release.
if I could throw a hypothetical back at you, let's say MK13 comes out, right? And it brings back the crypt properly. There's no invasions. It brings back the crypt, and the crypt is not a loot box. Okay, it's not randomly generated crypt like um MK11 was. Let's say there's a seasonal thing where like X amount of the crypt is the crypt for everybody, and then there's like branching off rooms that change for seasons. But there's multiple ways to unlock that stuff. Maybe you can unlock it online. There's etc. etc. Whatever. We can get into a hypothetical MK13 crypt another time. My point is, you boot up the game. Here's the crypt. There's we'll call it 500 coffins, right? Would you and you have the option of paying $10 to I should never say books. It sounds awful when a European says books. 10 quid to unlock the whole thing one go. You don't have to grind, and there's a good bit of grind in it. It would take you, let's say, a couple of weeks to grind the whole thing. There's some requirements. There's some shit like that. Would you? But it's technically paying more for on disc stuff. Is your time more valuable than your money? Or other way around. Beg your pardon. No, I'm correct. Like, would you pay for that? Would you say, okay, even though it's on disc, here's 10 quid, just give me everything?
I, the short answer is probably not. The longer answer is it depends on three things. One, is the grinding fun? Like I will buy a game and grind in that game if the gameplay loop is actually enjoyable. So that matters. That's why I couldn't play World Tour. I thought it was miserable.
Oh, I agree. I
I
fucking
just
hated World
bought
Tour.
Cammy's other costume.
I
So no,
hated
I will
World Tour.
not play World Tour if that's what you're asking.
Well, I mean, World Tour to me is a bad example because World Tour is just hyper grindy. I know some people like it. I know Benev is listening to this, and Benev loves World Tour. Um, I hated World Tour. Like I'm given to understand it's similar in a it's like a knockoff version of a Yakuza game. I've never played a Yakuza game, and I get that
Same. I've never played them.
maybe if you're like because I'm aware it's brimming with Easter eggs. Um, so maybe of like the wider Capcom universe. So maybe that's a thrill for people. In the same way, the MK11 crypt is just a thrill for me to run around in because it's just it bleeds MK, it bleeds what MK should be to me. Um, like if there was a Mortal Kombat version of World Tour, like kind of like an updated version of Deception Conquest, not with Shujinko, just with whoever the fuck. Um, I could maybe get into that because you're living in the universe. But no, not I'm not asking World Tour. Saying the grind is you don't have to grind in mode. So like maybe this kind of room of coffins is locked until you do 10 fatalities with maybe with every character. Not that might be a little bit of a grind, but like say 10 fatalities on every character, like the skull kebab thing that they had, but a less onerous version of that. And brutalities count too. So 10 finishers on each character. This room is locked until you reach X rank, but you can reach that rank offline or online. Like there's multiple ways of getting to each. The grind isn't like heartbreakingly onerous the way World Tour was. In those or the way MK11 was at release. In those circumstances, are you still paying?
Two more factors. The other one, again, going back to the short answer, probably not. But is the content good? Like one issue with Street Fighter Six was
It
it wasn't
sucks.
just
Yeah.
the costumes. Like I bought the costumes. Like well, I bought like DJ and I bought Cammy, but it was the colors too. They locked the colors behind that paywall unless you played that shitty World Tour mode. So that was not cool. I ended up not touching most of the colors, with maybe two exceptions with the Chung Li colors on the primary. So the content matters, but finally, do I want to support the company? And with Capcom, not really.
Okay.
With Arxis, though, I'm a big Granblue fan. I'm happy to throw $10 more towards, side games' way if they don't need the money. But they're also, if Granblue doesn't make enough money, we're not going to see more Granblue content, even though like side games is just like growing money in a field right now.
And that might
But
be
nonetheless, though, they don't have to rely on the fighting game. So I want that to succeed specifically. Go on.
translating that in terms of, and I think that's a really good point in terms of supporting the company. Um, I don't particularly want to support Bandai Namco, right? I mean, look, Tekken 8 in a way is a great game. It has just so many. This is something I've said to you before, and I think I might have said it on the last pod. I feel like Tekken 8 should have been the definitive fighting game of its generation, and I think it still will be the leading fighting game of its generation. But I do think it bungled a chance to be like era defining in the same way Tekken 3 was, in the same way SF4 was, in the same way Injustice 1 was. That's a joke. I feel like it had that chance, but despite Bandai Namco making what is objectively in a lot of ways a phenomenal game, um, it's one of my favorite fighting games ever for all its flaws. It's one of my favorite games ever for all its flaws. Like just the attitude in terms of the monetization and the battle pass. And maybe this gets to a wider point. I don't find Harada's attitude particularly kind of cute or funny. Um, like don't ask me for shit is okay. That is a good quote, but and there was the bit when he just started kind of like I don't like Lucky Chloe as a character, but him just ripping on Americans was very funny. Like the obvious contempt the man has for the United States of America is deeply enjoyable, but I don't find Harada and Michael Murray as well. I don't find the attitude of Bandai Namco to be something I particularly want to patronize or endorse. Um, Now, to be fair, Harada is not Tekken. Like I've got with the upswing in Tekken 8's popularity, or in Tekken's popularity with Tekken 8, I've seen some people try to equate Harada with Ed Boon. That's not the case. Tekken is very much not Harada's baby. Harada Harada was a voice actor on Law. If you go back and play Tekken, I think even to this day he still provides the voice acting for Law. But for Tekken 3 and I think Tekken 4 was the first game he was a producer on. And I think Tekken 5 was the game they gave Harada like full gold because Tekken 4 almost fucked everything up. So Tekken 5, they were like, well, let's give it to this new guy. But the point is, Harada is not Ed Boon in the way Ed Boon kind of is Mortal Kombat to a large extent. Um, where like you can he's been there for the entire thing and he's almost synonymous with it. Harada, I mean Tekken, he's synonymous with Tekken. That's the main thing he's done, but it's not his creative baby. It's not his thing. He did not generate it. But to also compare, I suppose, then Bandai Namco with NRS, building on that comparison, I certainly don't want to support NRS. Like I won't be buying MK13. I don't think I'm alone in saying this. I'm not buying the next MK at launch. I'm not buying the next Injustice at launch. I will be buying that shit pre-owned if they still do pre-owned. If not, I'll buy it when it's on sale because like they have destroyed that cachet of support. They've destroyed that kind of um trust, I suppose. Where like I bought the um I can't remember what version it was. The one that came with the first DLC pack with MK. Um, But I'm not gonna get like I've deleted the game and I'm not gonna re-download it. You can't make me re-download it. Whereas with Tekken, I'm gonna get a lot of hours. I'm gonna get much more enjoyment and hours out of Tekken. But there is still there's an attitude that I don't like regarding the monetization. So in terms of the willingness to support the company, for me that's absent for both. Certainly for Capcom, because I'm not a Capcom guy, but for Tekken and for Mortal Kombat, for slightly different reasons, that attitude is lacking on my part.
Fairly neutral. I'm neutral towards good on Namco. I mostly like the Harada stuff. I like his personality. And whatever parts I don't like makes up for the fact, or is made up by the fact that he actually like will go to barbecue like events with the top players and talk to them and take real feedback, which is just unheard of for the most part in the fighting game industry, right? So I despite that though, and I don't even really want to open up this can of worms, but having said that, I wouldn't, knowing what I know now, I would not have purchased the deluxe version of Tekken 8, knowing who's in the DLC pack. That is sort of a game changer. Had I known that, I would not put my money down on that. I would have bought the characters individually.
Well, I didn't
But
buy
here we are, right?
I didn't buy the deluxe pack because I didn't think I'd enjoy Tekken as much as I did because I didn't like Tekken 7. I really disliked Tekken 7. But I just the one thing I want to push back on slightly is because I think this is something that deserves more negative attention is the relationship that maybe not Harada directly, but Bandai Namco and Harada as kind of the head of Tekken has with creative players in that when you started to see pushback from certain top players in terms of the kind of offensive casino element of Tekken 8 on I think it was on Speed Kick's podcast. Um, oh, no, it's what's the English dude's podcast? Fuck, what's his name? It'll come to me as soon as this podcast is over. Anyway, it's a podcast that has a lot of top players in it.
Brian Hart?
No, no, it's not Reinhardt. It's oh, what's the dude's
What other
name?
English Tekken players are there?
Oh God, he's got a really kind of London accent. It's not Speed Kicks. Is it Speed Kicks? No, it's not Speed Kicks.
King J?
No, not King J. I thought he was just naming every black English Tekken player.
They're
Fuck, what's the name?
British.
Tekken 8
I
podcast.
cannot think of a single other British Tekken player right now.
Oh, this is gonna annoy me. I looked up Tekken 8 podcast and I've gotten like three Tom Brady episodes. No, it's not Lord Brady. Oh, I'm so this must make for awful radio, but Heat Speak.
Oh, okay.
Spag.
Gotcha.
I knew I'd get there. Yeah, the Heat Speak podcast has a lot of really really top players on, and like it's very noticeable that and I think one player I don't want to name, not that I would care, but it was it was a top Korean player, but he said through his translator, I can't say much. Like it's very apparent that players from that part of the world, Japan and Korea, if they want to have a good relationship with Bandai Namco, are restricted in what they can say. And like even Nee, when Nee came out, was like, I don't really like Tekken 8. Like 3 days later, he was like, it's on me to improve. And it is, which is a good attitude to have, but it's very, very suspicious, in my view, in light of the, I would say, unhealthy relationship and the kind of dependence that the top players have with Bandai Namco in terms of a working relationship, because Bandai Namco has all the power. So I'm not entirely sure I view the Harada relationship in the rosy terms. I don't, without being a dickhead, the kind of the optimistic terms that you would. Um, I don't think it's quite as kind of uh, difficult or problematic to use the word as the relationship between the very top NRS players, the top NRS player, the top NRS furry, um, and NRS, where there's a very clear back and forth in that relationship and games being tailored to a certain player's desires. But I do think there is, yeah, I'm not as fond of or maybe as optimistic as of the relationship between Harada and Bandai Namco's top players as you are.
Well, the Korean players are a unique example because, unlike the Japanese players and unlike the English speaking Western players, uh, the Korean players are not allowed a jury of their peers. Because if someone in America says, hey, this aspect of Tekken 8 sucks, they the social media West will jump to their defense. You know, if there's any pushback on that. Same thing with Japan. If someone in Japan says, hey, this thing about Tekken 8 sucks, then they have pretty much the Japanese speaking community, which is a lot of people, to
Mm.
back them up. Korea has nothing because Japan and the English speaking West do not understand Korean. They're just kind of on their own. So Harada can be like, go fuck yourself, and they'll
Okay.
respond with some Korean bullshit that no one will understand. And that's part of that.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's very true, and I hadn't factored that in at all. Um, but yeah, I think it's a strange kind of position to be in where Namco have created an incredible fighting game, um, with beautiful, gorgeous graphics that we talked about, and it's very fun to play. I mean, I don't have as many hours as like some people. I think I have 130 hours on it, which in Tekken terms is basically nothing. But it's the some of the bag fumbling. I really dislike, and this is something that um is becoming more and more prevalent. Is because Street Fighter did it as well. I think Street Fighter did it. Is starting to sell the DLC like and then not having all the characters revealed, even into the lifespan of the game. Maybe I'm wrong with Street Fighter. Maybe Street Fighter did it at release. Um, but I don't remember an egregious and as an egregious an example as Tekken has done in terms of like we only found out about Lydia like a month ago. Uh, it's heavily leaked that it's Falcon Rang and who's the other one? Murder. Um,
Yep, Marduk.
which like I mean, on principle, it's an awful way of doing business, but also that is such a bad DLC fucking roster. Like they of
You
I
definitely
thought
can't put Marduk in that lineup. It doesn't work.
no, you can't. Like I mean, the philosophy of putting Liddy in, I think, is bizarre because she was the last character in Tekken 7. Um, most people, and I don't like introduce. She's fundamentally still a new character to me. Um, I object to introducing new characters in DLC. uh, like to the point of I think you should, if you're still making DLC characters, plumb the depths of your classic characters. Like in Mortal Kombat terms, I would rather see Cobra and Kira and Dairu as DLC characters before a new character is DLC. Um, I just
Especially when
I
we're missing so many iconic females too. That is really weird.
yeah, like Julia, Shell, Anna, um, and I would like instead of let's say instead of because I think we'd agree Eddie is a great DLC choice. Eddie is a really really good DLC choice. Would you agree on that?
I do agree, but even then, it's. I think. Well, I would argue he's the only good one in a
Oh,
way.
I'd agree.
I like. I even like Marduk. I
I
like
agree.
Lydia, but it's just.
But see, I
But
like
like for
Marduk.
example, Jax is.
Go on.
What's it?
No, I was going to say I like Marduk. I agree. I like Marduk as a character, not as a part of a DLC pack.
Yeah, it's like for example though, like if you were going to have like a Mortal Kombat DLC pack. I love Jax. Jax, from a gameplay perspective, is one of my favorite characters. But if the lineup was four characters and it was Ferritor, Cetrion, Mocap, and Jax, Jax isn't going to cut it anymore. You need someone bigger than Jax. You need a ninja. You need like a Kintaro. You need like a real heavy hitter at that point. And Eddie wasn't enough. Eddie did not cut it.
I agree
And
fully.
Marduk is a dude. Like I like Marduk, but he's a dude. He's a bald dude, who sometimes wears a hoodie. You need something more than that. You need as I love Marduk, but he's not a dinosaur. He's not a kangaroo. He's not Julia. You really needed someone better than that.
Honestly, the first thing that comes to mind when I think of Marduk is I'm not sure if people remember this, but in Tekken, oh, was it Tekken 4 or Tekken 5? I think it might have been Tekken 5.
I'm not going to remember most likely. I mean, are you thinking of the Anna ending?
Yes, yes, I am thinking of that. That is the first
Okay,
thing
yeah,
that
I
comes to
do. I am
mind.
familiar with that.
It's like, oh,
Should have put an Anna.
Is Marduk technically a rapist? But I
I
agree.
think
I
he's a
absolutely agree.
non-canon rapist.
A non-canon rapist, yeah. Um, I I remember this that reminded me of an argument I had with someone on MKO, like in like 20 fucking 14, about MKX DLC, which is my argument was a perfect DLC pack for MKX would have been Jax, Sonya, Kung Lao, and Smoke, because those characters make MK feel like MK, but also you give new characters and returning kind of classic characters who we haven't seen in a while room to breathe on the normal roster. And I think if you had had Eddie and Lydia and Marduk, I'm going to leave out Phantom Rang because that should be Bruce Irvin. But like, say you have those three characters in the base roster, right? And the DLC was okay, characters who weren't really necessary, who were cool but not necessary in story. Let's say Feng, Dragonov, um, Asuka. You might object to that one. And let's say Julia.
Asuka would sell. I think. Okay, let's say I would never want Asuka to not be base, but if she's not base, she is a fantastic choice for
Exactly.
DLC. So she is the Street Fighter Sakura of Tekken, in my opinion.
Or even if we were to just keep the roster as is, I mean, if you replace, like, keep Eddie, because I would agree, Eddie's a really good DLC character, but replace the other three characters with Eddie, Julia, Lei, and let's say Alex. Because, well, Roger, most people would prefer Roger. I like Alex. But those four, like, that is a really good DLC roster. And I think, I'm not sure, I don't want to say it's a deliberately bad DLC like DLC roster, but I find it very hard to believe they sat down and went Eddie, Lydia, Marduk, and Fakumran, whatever the fuck that guy, the big fucking Muay Thai guy. That they went, yeah, that is gold. That's what we're going for our first DLC. When you still have no Julia or Michelle, no Lay. I know a lot of people like Miguel. I'm not a big Miguel guy. No Anna. Um, and I'm not
No
saying you need
Bob.
to,
Like I would say,
well,
out of the Tekken 6 cats, I would say Bob is probably the most requested.
that's probably fair. I'm not a big Bob guy. Like I,
I'm neutral on Bob. He's okay. I'm not. I don't need Bob, but I wouldn't hate seeing him again.
I mean, apologies to anybody who's listening. I like Slim Bob. I think fat is to me as bald is to you. I can't fuck with it. So Bob to me, fat Bob to me just does not work. But like, I, I'm not suggesting they need to blow their load entirely on the first DLC pack and leave nothing for subsequent packs, right? But I do think it needs to be significant or needed to be significantly better than this because I don't think I'll buy any of those three characters. Because Lydia, I'm not sure if you have thoughts on Lydia. I never played Lydia. Um, I don't really have thoughts on her. I might have thoughts on her if she was a base roster character. That would have introduced me to the character, give me exposure to the character, a reason to try the character. I'm not going to pay for the privilege of trying her. Um, Marduk is just not interesting enough, and I'm certainly not going to buy Falk. If that was Bruce Irvin, I'd buy it with fucking bells on. But I feel like it's just such a boring choice, and particularly in Tekken, where like you could go back in Tekken history and you could pull some real oddballs that I think would sell a huge amount. Like, imagine if you had a pack with Ogre, Wang, Gunjack, and Angel. Like, I think that would sell colossally. I think people would be so hyped for that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think people would be way more hyped for that, which is a pack of four characters who really are all are kind of there's some good characters, but they're side characters. They're not really um they're like Reiko. They're like Reiko level characters of or Fujin level characters of yeah, they're cool, but they're not central to the story or kind of core roster. But I think people would be really, really hyped for those four characters versus the four characters we have now.
Well, they each bring something new to the table. Like the packer we have right now is like four people you would run into at the club. That's the problem. They're no none of they're all just normal ass people, which just makes it so stale to me. And I don't know. Like I guess one problem that goes specifically to Lydia is assuming you know nothing about gameplay. What is the selling point of Lydia? And I cannot think of anything.
Well, this is exactly the position I'm in because I don't know what the selling point of Lydia is. She's Polish. I understand she's Polish because Harada went to Poland and really liked Poland, which is cool. She's the Polish Prime Minister, which is a bit odd. Um, that the Polish Prime Minister is this smoking hot blonde chick, but who's also a world class karateka. But okay, we're playing Tekken. I'm okay with that. But like I'm given to understand her story in Tekken 7 was uh Heihachi threatened to invade Poland with the Zaibatsu at the same time he was invading the entire like there's a world war going on here. I don't want to get into Poland's history and world wars, just don't need to go there. But like there's a world war going on. Don't take it personally that you're threatened to invade. And the way to solve that is I mean, okay, in Tekken it is to a karate tournament, but there's nothing for me to hang my hat on. Like she really likes breaking blocks and has a connotation with beach arenas, despite not being like a beach girl. Um, like it's strange to me she's being introduced with the Tekken Ball stage as a beach area. Like I'm not a big Christy Montero fan because I can talk to girls, so I didn't spend my early teenage years masturbating to Christy Montero. But like that's the character you should be introducing the beach phase, the beach stage with. Um, but yeah, there's for me there's nothing that Lydia is a nothing character, and she may be like awesome. And I know I think they're releasing a free story pack, which is really cool. That'll feature Eddie and Lydia, and credit to them for that. That is very cool. Um, even if that's paid, I don't mind paying for that. That's cool. But yeah, for me, someone who's never played Lydia, Lydia is nothing. She is almost an NPC level character. Whereas at least I never played Falcon Rang either, but like, okay, I get this. Excuse me, I get this. He's 7 foot tall. He's covered in tattoos. He's a Muay Thai fighter. Okay, I don't see why you need him again over Bruce, but I say that as a Bruce fanboy. But I would even prefer Josie. I don't like Josie, but I know a lot of people do because a lot of people are Coomers. But she also has personality. She does have I find it an annoying personality, but it's a personality. Fine. Um, Marduk again. I know Marduk. I wouldn't call him a classic Tekken character, but he's a staple. He's been in a lot of Tekkens. I think he might have been in every Tekken since Tekken 4, if you count DLC. Um, but Lydia is just a nothing. And if you want to make a new character you introduce as DLC a staple character, or even a character who hasn't been seen in a while, who you then had as DLC. I think Rain in MK9. If you want to make that a staple, just put them in the main roster of the next game. It's it is a baffling choice to me. Lydia is a baffling choice because I can't see her selling particularly well. She does not have the cachet, the investment of kind of nostalgia that people have. There won't be. I understand she was in Tekken 7, but she was the last character played when Tekken 7 had kind of had not its last hurrah, but it had passed its peak. Um, she seems a bit kind of bland, good person. That's her character. She's a good person who is very patriotic about her country and likes a particular kind of stew that Harada really liked when he was in Poland. And she's a good-looking blonde who looks a lot like Nina Williams. Like That's the character. Whereas, like at least Falconbrand, who is theoretically in a similar position to Lydia, there's things I can say, well, okay, that's who that is. Lydia is kind of a nothing. So it's a baffling choice to me. If you want to make her a quote unquote real Tekken character, cool. Put her in the main story, put her in the main roster because she's the leader of a country. She could have a role in story instead of just spitball, instead of having the fucking Marvel what's the name of that Marvel shield ship that flies around the place?
Oh, yeah. Crap.
What's oh god. Hold on. I'll look it up. Marvel. The heli ship? This is gonna annoy me. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, the one that turns invisible.
Apparently it's just a helicarrier, which is a really fucking bad name. Um anyway, the helicarrier. If you just had that, instead of having that, if you just had the like Team Jin meet in Poland because she's offering them diplomatic immunity, boom, there, you got a way to work her into the story. Even if you do that and she's not necessarily playable, I'm getting exposed to the character, maybe I'm getting interested in the character, she's interacting with other characters. But as it is, she's a nothing. I don't want to be mean, and I'm sure there are some fans of the character, people who are excited of the character, but she leaves me very, very
Yeah,
cold.
there are a lot of fans, but they also played the character too. Like the fans like bought her in Tekken 7 and like mained her. So if you didn't do that, and there were so many characters in Tekken 7, you're at a big disadvantage right now. You're not, and like you can't even really sell her as a fan service character, given the characters that are already in the game. She is so sort of isolated from that aesthetic, so she doesn't even really have that.
Well, when you say fan service, do you mean like tits and ass?
Yes.
Okay, just well, I mean, you like if playing Tekken 8 online has taught me anything, it's that there is no all female characters can be made into barefoot schoolgirls by this fucking fan base. Um, but
But
like,
there's a difference between like a barefoot schoolgirl and whatever the fuck Elisa's costume is for her alternate. Like, there's those are worlds apart, in my opinion.
isn't that the costume you use?
Yes,
Yes, I just want the audience to be aware of that. That is the outfit
I will use
That
it
is the
again.
outfit Tep uses. Yeah, it's disgusting. Um, but like, I mean, to get into it, I mean, I know we're wrapping up, but in terms of like fan service, if you want to even characterize Anna as a fan service, where her sex appeal as charisma, if that makes sense, because sex appeal can be charisma. Um,
I would argue it's only charisma. Like, I don't think those things exist in separate spheres. Now, it can work for or against depending on how it's like calibrated.
I mean, I
Like,
couldn't
too much
disagree with
sex
that.
appeal makes your character look stupid, but they're never disconnected, in my opinion. Though they always affect each other.
I mean, would you argue then that all charisma has an element of sex appeal to it?
I would say all present sex appeal affects charisma. But I don't know if
I,
there's such a thing as no. Yeah,
I agree with that. I agree that like a character like Anna Williams being a great example has a lot of charisma because she has a lot of sex appeal because she plays up to the sex appeal. But for instance, I would argue Kazuya has a lot of charisma. Is there something you want to tell us about how you feel about Kazuya, Tim?
I think Kazuya has sex appeal. I can say that out loud. I'm not ashamed. Yoshimitsu might be the best example. Is like, okay, well, Yoshimitsu, he doesn't have very big tits. Does he not have charisma? I'm like, well, no. Yoshimitsu has charisma, but that's the thing, though. Like, if you were to make him like visually attractive in that sort of in that specific dimension, then it would affect his cool or lack thereof. His cool factor, I guess.
Sorry, I'm just still stuck on you wanting to fuck Kazuya.
He's got the eyebrows, man.
Um, but I do agree with you in principle that if Lydia and look, I'm not a as you know people can probably tell by my numerous comments, I am not a I don't. It's not that I dislike playing female characters. I played Scarlet, but I don't really. I'm not drawn to female characters based on sex appeal. I don't particularly like playing people who I know are playing a female character because of their sex appeal. I have an extraordinary amount of contempt. I think my bio on Tekken 8 actually says I don't rematch waifu players, which is basically how I feel. Um, I have an extraordinary amount of contempt for most people who play waifus. Like if you are playing a barefoot Lily, it comes back to my position on Smash players, which I elucidated way back on the first Warrior Shrine I was ever on, which is I'm not saying all Smash players are sexual offenders. I'm just saying, would you feel more comfortable leaving a child in the care of a Smash player or a non-Smash player? If that's the only information you have about that person, that they play Smash or they don't play Smash, most people are going to pick the person who does not play Smash. And I feel the exact same about people who play waifu characters solely for the cum bait. I'm just
Yeah, I
throwing it
think
out
that's
there.
fair. Yeah.
I'm not saying you're all sex offenders. I am saying I'm deeply uncomfortable with you being alone with children, and I do not. And I, if I saw you talking to like a girl, I mean, obviously, if you play a waifu character, you can't talk to girls, so that's fine. But in theory, if I saw you talking to a girl, I would alert the authorities. Anyway, with that all said, if Lydia was essentially a sex appeal character, a tits and ass character. Okay, it's not my thing, but there is something here. There is some level of I know what you're going for with this character. I know who this character is.
There's
Not
something
even
that makes her different from Marduk.
exactly. I mean, there are things that make her different from Murdoch now, but she's not just a chick. Right now, she's just a blonde chick who does karate. Um, which like and I get that it's slightly hypocritical of me because I've always liked that element of Tekken. That to a certain extent, Hwarang is just a dude with dyed red hair who does Taekwondo, gets into street fights, and kind of has a boy crush on Jin. Like, oh my god, we have to fight. Oh my god. It's not a gay thing at all. It's kind of a gay thing. Um, that I basically just summed up Hwarang's character. Bruce Lee is or Bruce Lee. That's a Freudian slip. Law is just a Bruce Lee knockoff. These characters aren't necessarily that rich, but there are things that make them stand out. Like there are only three or four personality traits. Because I've often felt that, and I think I've said this before, fighting games are the purest example of showing character personality in as few traits as possible. Because if you go back to the arcades, which to be fair, I was too young for, but I know my history. Like, what gave you Scorpion's personality? Well, he wore yellow and he took his head off to reveal he was a skeleton who could breathe fire. Like you could go like going back to Ken and Ryu, people distinguish between Ken and Ryu's personalities based on the smallest things. You had little lines of like text and the way they kind of celebrated a fight. It's the smallest stuff in the presentation of a character in a fighting game which builds their character. That builds from that. Um, and I think Lydia is almost totally lacking in that. And I'm saying in 1,000 words what you said in 50. If you haven't played the character, there is nothing there for you. So I think she is a choice that appeals only to a very certain subset, and that subset are basically all hardcore Tekken fans. Like I feel if you released Lydia as the second character in the third DLC pack in 2026, she would have the exact same reception and hype level as she is being released now. And to me, that feels like a squandered opportunity.
I don't know what else more to. I mean, I don't know if I have anything to add to that. And I say all this as someone who kind of likes Lydia. I think she's okay. Um, but this is not it. This is not the
This is
character
not
they
it, yeah.
needed right now.
As the Zoomers say, this ain't it, Chief.
Yeah, so I think
I think
in
we
a
could wrap
better
up on that
pack,
note, yeah.
Lydia would have been fine.
Yeah,
What's up?
I agree. And I think we're coming to a natural conclusion where we agree. And I agree. Like, if this pack was Eddie, Lydia, Armor King, Julia, fine. Okay, she's the down note in that, but she's catering to the Tekken 7 audience. Fine. But in a pack where, like, this pack doesn't have a lot going on, she stands out pretty badly. Well, she stands out by not standing out because it's just like Eddie, and then okay, like my attitude is I bought Eddie, I played Eddie. I was never a huge Eddie guy, but Eddie's a classic character. Um, and now I'm just like my eyes are just glazing over the rest of the pack. And like, well, hopefully pack two will have like, I mean, if pack two comes out and I mean, it'll be announced what Christmas of this year, if not later, and it's Armor King, Julia, Roger, and Anna. Like that's a damn fine pack. And I just mix the two. Like if you had a pack where you had Eddie, Lydia, Armor King, Roger, and then a pack with Marduk, Falcon Rang, Julia, and whoever the other person was, Lydia. Like that's I just think that's way stronger.
The four character pack is also a problem too. That would also have alleviated a lot of a lot of pain if they just had one more character in there who
Even
was like a
five.
Lei Wulong or who was an Armored King.
I mean, for me, it's not the number of characters. Like, I mean, look, I like to get more bang for my buck, but like, well, say more. What do you mean? Like, would you want? Do you prefer five character packs as a concept over four?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Because we're about to go into season 4 of Strive, and I still don't have my main.
Oh,
So
so just in
yeah,
terms of more volume.
it's a no
Okay, okay,
brainer for me.
okay. Just in terms of more volume.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. See, for me, I'm kind of operating on the presumption that there will functionally be no drop off in volume. Like if we get we got Eddie in spring of 24, Lydia in summer, we'll say Marduk in autumn, or fall as you guys call it, and then Falcon in winter. I'm expecting the first DLC character of Pack Two to be spring of 2025. So I don't foresee. Maybe I'm wrong. I think the schedule is set. So I think regardless of if there's, I think if there were five characters in this pack, you would still get that fifth character in spring of 2024. I don't think the pack would be more condensed in terms of its release schedule.
I imagine it would be, but I can't prove that. I do think the release schedule would be tighter if that were the case. But again, that's that's not something I could possibly verify.
But yeah,
But
it
that would
is.
be the hope, at least.
I don't know. It seems to be an industry trend to space it out. I mean, MK has six characters. It's 2 months a character. Tekken has four characters. It's 3 months a character. SF had four: Rashid, Aki, Ed, and Akuma, and that's been I think 10 months now. It'll be ten. The game will be 10 months old when Akuma's out. Um, so it's just 2 to 3 months per character. It just seems to be kind of industry standard now.
I think part of that is COVID. For Street Fighter specifically, that game was just really hard to develop for. Apparently, the RE engine ended up being a huge obstacle for creating content.
Is that why there's
For
only
Strive,
fucking
I think that
18
was
characters?
yeah.
Is that why there's only fucking
Say
18
again.
characters? I was just gonna say, is that why there's only 18 characters in SF6?
I'm not 100% sure, but I know that is why we don't have so many costumes. Because in
Okay.
SF5, they were churning out costumes like mad, and
Really?
now it sounds like they have to manually texture all the costumes in a way they didn't have to do before.
Oh, that's a fucking nightmare.
Well, when I say man, I think what happens is they have a part of the engine that is just part of texture generation that has to work with the new costumes, and I don't. I was trying to find the article the other day. I was trying to pull it up for NASA, but I couldn't find it. But yeah, apparently it's just a lot of work creating costumes for that game, which was which also doesn't really make sense because of the mod community was able to do this stuff in less than 24 hours. So I don't know what's going on, man. It doesn't make any sense. They might just be full of shit.
Well, on that note, shall we? Do you want to wrap it up? You got any final thoughts before we call it a pod?
I would say the thought that always comes back to me for Tekken 8 is the game still looks unbelievably good. It is
It
the
is
best
gorgeous.
non 2D graphics game ever visually for me. And just watching Lars versus Xiao Yu and just in the one of the better stages of the game, I don't think it visually gets better than this, and that keeps me wanting to go back to the game.
Agree. It is an absolutely gorgeous game. Um, okay, so I think on that note we'll wrap it up. Hopefully we'll get the next one out in. I think it was about what 6 weeks from between here and the last one. So hopefully we get a bit quicker than that. Although I am spending like half of the next month on Mediterranean beaches, which is gonna rock. Anyway, thank you very much for
Nice.
listening, and yeah, hope you're enjoying whatever you've been doing while listening to this, because I presume you're not just staring at the YouTube screen, and if you are, perhaps seek psychiatric help. Anyway, say bye, Tim,
Yep. Take care.
and that's bye for me. So see you guys. Thanks for listening. Bye bye.